So there we have the cockpit together. I'll just bring you in. There we go. You can see the instruments and the dials in there like that. Now the only thing we're still going to do is just going to put some cabling coming off the back, and we're going to do that quite simply with some grey thread, just like this, and then we're just going to run some out quite randomly from all the back of the dials, and then we just let them literally run down the back. Okay, so what we've done on this one, as you can see here, we've put on the actual the exhaust stack area where that's going to go in there, and then obviously you've got a small little cover which goes on the front, which is going to go in this hole right here. So the same thing, you want the little tab goes to the rear, so it's actually easier to poke it in the hole. Make sure you're all happy with the fit, how it all is, and it's all lying exactly right. If it's a little bit high and various bits and pieces, then just usually take your file and just give a gentle sand to the edges, because the chances are it's just probably a tiny little bit of flashing somewhere that's sticking out. Don't sand away on the inside, because these little tabs hold it slightly off and holds it up, which is quite nice. So we're going to get that in there. We'll try it again. So sit that in there like so. And there we go, that's going to be quite a nice fit in there. So then all we'll do, we'll come along with our glue, I just put a drop down, and you'll probably see the capillary action zip its way around anyway. But obviously you can go from just down in the inside, just down in there as well, and give it a drop, and that'll go on the inside. And then just come around afterwards, take something flat, okay, and just give it a little push if you want, and then just give it a little brush in case you've got any runs, and it will just smooth all those out, and you can let them dry, and that will make for a nice little fit there, just like that. Okay, so now we're into the position where we can get it together. So obviously I've got some tape around the cockpit which was just holding it all together whilst it's drying. It's all dry now, so that can come out. So we just peel that off. Stick that to the obligatory edge of the desk. Okay, as you can see, we've got some wiring down here, or I hope you can see even. You might be able to see there. There we go. We've got some wiring, fuse wire for the big ones off the top, and I've just usually used black cotton, and we just laid them down there. When it goes in, it's all going to be quite tight, and you're not going to see it perfectly well, but it's a nice way. But as you can see, it just gives it that nice little bring it to life type of effect all in there like that. And as you see, the harnesses, once they're in, and by the time we've got a canopy on, you really won't notice that much. So same thing, what we're going to do, the way I work, I tend to put it all to one side, so i.e. we've got the air cooling system in here, so now we're actually fixed the cockpit side will go in as well, and then hopefully it should sit, or will sit, just on. So you've got your little locating tabs just down the bottom here, so we'll take that and we're just going to put a drop of glue on each area, and as I say, let it all zip its way around, and then we're just going to do a little bit just down the back in here like so, and then what we'll do, we're just going to put a little bit just to run down the inside of this gap that runs down here. That will just go hopefully like so, and we'll just give it quite a generous bit to let it weld up and across like so. So we just hold that for a few moments just to start to bite nicely, and then we'll get the other side on. Okay, so that's just been done there for the last couple of minutes just to get it to bite, if you like, and then we can come along and we can get our other half in. Now we're just having a look round because there is some little things that could be opened, so we're just checking our thing that nothing needs to be opened up, which it says it doesn't, so that's good enough for me. So we just start on the front, because obviously getting those location holes for this front edge is going to be the tricky one. And then obviously we do from the bottom, and we can see exactly how it's going to go up. Okay, so that's on. What we're going to do is just grab a rubber band and just hold this rear area, not massively hard, and then we can just make sure we're all going in together and we're all happy. So what we're doing, we're looking for massive big gaps. You know, if there's a big gap, then we know perhaps it could be It could be a ejector pin mark is sticking up and it's making for a bad join. It could be that it's actually where you've cut it from the sprue, you've got a little bit of tab left in there, you know, little things. So on a modern kit like this, you know, obviously if you're going back in the day and you've got like a 1970s Matchbox kit, it's going to be a problem going together. They never were that nice. But certainly with a modern tooled kit, something like this, if you go together and you've got a big gap, there's going to be a reason for that. And it's well worth spending a little bit of time having a good look round it to try and find out what that problem is. So I'm quite happy with that. So we'll just pop another rubber band just around the front here, like that, to roughly hold it. And what we'll do, we'll start gluing on this inside type edge and in this front where it isn't going to be noticeable or seen, and we can get some good amounts in there. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll just run a little bit just towards the rubber band, but not right up to it. We don't want it to touch, because if we touch, the capillary action of obviously the liquid cement will run along the band. You're going to end up with like a mould mark around there. Also, what you'll find is, talking the other day to a few of the newer modelers coming along to it, and they were talking about using the liquid glue. Remember, what happens is it's also, because it starts to melt the actual area, as this glue does, it will help with the join. So don't think, you know, when you push together and you'll get a little glue mark pop out the top, you can easily sand that off, but it will make for a nice tight fit. You know, you won't get a perfect join every time. So if we just do like that, and then we're just going to run some glue down the front here, working down the front. And obviously we've got a small part which we'll have to fit on, which is this one here. It's going to go on this front area, and we'll just work our way down round towards the front, so not getting too close to that rubber band area, because all we'll do, we're going to come back afterwards and we're going to take care of it. But certainly we can do the other half now of those locating areas for the cockpit floor, and then we can actually from the inside put a generous amount of glue just down in this back area in here, and then just touch, and you'll see it zip off and it will join up. Now it's not a problem in there because it's all going to be covered up, you're not going to see it anyway. But what we'll do is we'll just pull this down a little bit, and we're happy with it all going together. Okay, and we'll just do this rear edge here, which is quite a complicated shape. So just in like that. I've got a couple of little bulkheads at the back from where the tail is going to join to strengthen it up, so that can go in. All happy with how it's going, and then just run a little bit just down the back, up the front, this area here. And then what we'll do is, when it's totally dry, in about sort of 10 minutes, we'll whip these rubber bands off and we'll redo these areas, and we can check and push fit and make sure everything is all okay and there's no gaps. But there we go, that's the fuselage halves together, and obviously that cockpit area is looking very nice in there now. And it's really sort of coming to life, and that the seat really works well being in the aluminium colour, just like that. So there we go, we'll leave that to one side, just to start to go off a little bit. What we'll do, whilst we've got the glue and everything on the go, we're just going to put a little bit on this bottom and on this top edge, and we'll just slide in whilst we've still got a little bit of movement. He says, hoping it's going to allow him a tiniest little bit of movement. There we go. And it does fit in there, very tight, but it does go. And what we're going to do, we're going to sand and blend that totally in. So we're going to use a generous amount of glue all over that front and down underneath as well, securing everything up nice and tight. A little bit of a push to make sure we're all okay. Now it's dry to the touch now on this front area, so we should be able to just whip this front section off like that. Okay, and then we can just run our glue down the front, a couple of passes, and we'll let that weld up. Same with the underside, I've got a small little gap going on just back here, so we're just going to run it down, and then we're just going to give it a little wiggle to marry it up and to find out exactly why it's not sitting straight. And I think it's just because it's putting a little bit of pressure on the inside of the radiator areas there. So let's give them a bit. Okay, so there we go, that's quite nice. And we should be able to do the same with the rear now. Okay, generous amount of glue. Remember, you do need quite a bit if you're going to be sanding off like we're going to do here along this top edge. If you don't, you'll sand through the glued area and you're going to have a gap straight through. So you need that weld action to work all the way through. But there we go, that's that area all done and together. Okay, so as you can see, we've got the next pieces all out. Now what we can do, we've got this little, the gap, the little hole at the top up here. We bring you in a bit, and just move all that out of the way. There we go. So we've got this hole here. So we've got a little cover for that. So what we're going to do is put a drop of glue in that hole first. Now the reason we put it in there first, it will help it to settle in and weld its way in, because it will soften the plastic all around. Pop it in. Don't push your finger over the top, because you're likely to squash all the glue out and end up with a glue fingerprint. So then all we do, we use a something flat, got a little bit of a gap on one edge. So we're just going to pop a little bit of glue in there, give it a little brush over the top. Okay, that will do. That's that. Totally all done. And then we can do the same at the front here. And we can just slot this over and then in. Now this is one of those tricky areas. When I was dry fitting it a minute ago, I had a few little lumps and bumps and tabs and various bits and pieces. So the way I did it, if you take a rubber band, okay, I'll just show you outward a bit more and show you what I've done here. So we've got a rubber band and we've sat it on and married it up at the top, and we're very happy with that join, but then obviously this front edge pushes forward, so we've got a rubber band running the length just to hold the bottom of it in there. So what we'll do, we'll just put a drop of glue in at the top, up the front here, and along that join, and then we're just going to run a little bit just down each side, not too far because we don't want to go down to that rubber band. Okay, and then we're just going to leave it and let that bit go hard, and then we can then pull in that front area even more once it's dry. But we need that top bit to be a nice join and a nice glue mark before we get in there with the lower part. So we just leave that to one side to carry on. Okay, so now we can start on the wheel wells. So we've got those parts all out and they're all been cleaned up already. So you've got your main spar, which is going to run across the two and becomes the front of them. So what we're going to do then, we'll start on with these parts here, which are the bigger parts which go to the inside. So that goes to the back. He says knowingly, it's going to fit just like so on the top like that, and then these are going to go up underneath, which are going to be a little bit. So what we do, we'll just put a bit of glue on the top ones to start with, just on there like that. There we go. Just hold that just for a second, just to let it bite. Okay, and then it's probably easier to sort of turn them upside down and do it. Okay, now the ones with the big scoops for the tyre scoops actually go to the inside, and then obviously the higher part is at the back. So there we go, in like that. Drop of glue. Just mind your fingers, you don't get caught with the glue zipping around everywhere. Okay, there's one. I'm going to take the thinner one. Just in like that. And on the other side, we just run a little bit. We've got this one as well, just down on the inside, and that does that one. Okay, good. Hold it for a sec, there we go. Okay, I'll flip it over. And there we go. Quite simple, quite straightforward, just like that. And then what we've also done, whilst those bits are drying, we've opened up the holes on here. You've got 2 over here on the outer wing, which are these parts here, and then you've got actually 4 on the inside and then 4 on the outside on here, so they're done as well. And then I do believe this part is just going to come along, and then we're just going to sit right on the top, just like that, so we get our wheel wells in like that, so it's in. So we can glue that in place now as well. So if we'll just start on this, the ridge bar as it goes across, and we'll get that welded in, drop a glue down at the back, and we're just going to push down and hold. Okay, so we've put this back part in there, very simple, both sides just clip together and is in there tight. Now we can also do this front area, that twangs off. So we're going to do a generous amount of glue up around the front of this collar as it goes round. Okay, and we're going to come back. That's it. And we're just going to put that down. Actually what we'll do is we're going to change the angle and we're going to run it across and down. Just like that, just to pull that front in. Unfortunately we slipped with the glue a little bit just there, but it'll pull it down just like that now to pull the front in and do that part. So we've got that bit on the top, and say that part on the front, we can leave that to dry. We've obviously got the box section in for the undercarriage and that bar running across. Now I put one side in. These are quite fiddly to fit, these front curved bits here, as you can see, and that's these. Okay, now they are quite a tight fit, so all we're going to do is literally you just slide them in, and if you do them dry, fit them in first, you should find they'll sit. Now the thing to allow for is the curve on this side here. It doesn't actually curve to it, there's like an undercurve, so you just need the top to be the right height. So we just sit that in, and when it's all looking square and neat and it's all okay, then you can come in with your glue and just run it down, and say it's dropped just a little fraction on this side. We just need it to be all okay, so use your nail to sort of see where you are. That's it, it's got you in like that, and just drop a little bit on the inside. Okay, so that's the underside of the box section of the wing done there, so that can go out. So we're just going to leave that to one side to dry for a few moments to do that. Now the other thing we can do at the same time is the tail, which is still attached on its sprue, so we just put this over to one side for the moment and bring you out a bit. So we're just going to cut this off the back. Now the reason why you get 2 different tails, well you don't, you only get the one in the box, but the reason why the tails are separate is because there's a longer tailed version that followed of the aircraft, and that's what they've done. Hasegawa obviously are going to be bringing out, which they are very very shortly, the other one. So what we'll do, we'll just remove these tails from the sprue. Okay, just like that, and the top. Okay, when you're cutting with your scissors, remember to keep them flat to the sides, and in that way, if you're using obviously cutters, you know, obviously I use these Friska's orange handle scissors, I think, as you all know now, but certainly if you're using cutters, he says, thinking he might have a pair around but he doesn't, don't cut them quite as close as obviously I do here, because they tend to squash more than cut when they actually go through the plastic. And what can happen is, if you're doing it too close to the sides of wings and things like that, certainly on edges like tails here, you can actually end up taking a chunk out of it and it looking quite unsightly. But you can see that's a very clean part and it doesn't really need anything. So what we're going to do, we're just going to put this side together. Same thing again, we've got these little nodules you're going to find on the wings, and you'll get the call out at the moment to take them out now. I'm going to leave them on for a moment and we're going to trim them all off at the very very end. So we're just going to pop the sides together and see how we're looking. and how it's going to go, and it's all okay, and we've still got the tabs obviously to sand off, but they're not affecting the joint itself, so it's easier to do them afterwards. So we're just going to run our glue, as we do, all over these parts. Okay, remember when you're getting near edges like this not to pinch like this, otherwise you'll get glue in your fingers and you end up with a big mess. And being the extra thin as this is, you will find it will travel a long way and make a big mess. So when you come to do edges, if you put your brush on the side like this and just run it up like that, you'll find that the capillary action will pull itself all up round everywhere. Okay, so I'm very happy with that. So a little bit at the back here. Okay, so we'll just stick that on its box edge like that. Snip that off. Okay, you have your top and your right, obviously pins to make sure, otherwise you're going to end up with this little join here, which is how it slots in the back on the tail. It won't work basically if you've got it around the wrong way. So same thing, edges of the wings, just going to do it. I bring you in, I can show you. Okay, in you come. So as I say, you have it like this, get a bit back to front, okay, and just run your glue down, and because it will stick to your brush with the capillary action, it works, but don't pinch the edge, just squash slightly, okay, and go around. Now the thing is, don't go on the top and do it, otherwise what can happen is if you're on the top and you do it like that, the paint will then run, the glue, sorry, will run down the front, and before you know it, it's eaten into your little lines and various bits and pieces. But obviously if by holding it on the bottom, you hold it on the brush, and it stops it doing it. So there we go, light push, as I say, don't go grabbing the edges. If you do need to grab the edges, one little tip, if you use your scissors, if you've got perhaps there's a little bit of flash in there, something like that, use your scissors, okay, make them into a small little hole at the front and just push together, just like that, okay, and what that'll do is that the glue won't run everywhere and it will just hold it together, and you can just lightly, without cutting, just hold it down and do it like that, and it makes for a nice clean little join and brings problem areas together, and you can do it like that. But as I say, if you use tweezers, perhaps things like that, because of the way they are, it doesn't bite the first little edge, if you like, it'll push the top and then perhaps pull it actually open as it's trying to do it. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so these parts are all dry now. Now remember to pop round, you know, with quite a fine file, and just give it a rub round, and it'll get rid of all those little bits of glue that have perhaps been squashed out. You don't want to be digging in there and cutting in, you're just doing it lightly, and then just pop around with your fine or your sort of medium sanding sponge, and just take all those edges off and make them good. And if you've got any glue marks around the outside, it'll take care of them. And then just pop around with your polishing type one, or your fine sponge as well, and just take care of any little joints and any little bits that are going on there. Obviously if you've got raised rivet detail like this one has, don't go digging in there too much, because otherwise you're going to take it out. Okay, I've really cleaned up all the bits as well. I'm just giving it a bit of a run round. Okay, usual thing, wet your area and come in and polish it and buff it all up. And then obviously what will happen is, once we've got it all together, we're going to go around with a bit of acrylic and we'll check all those seams. Now the beauty with this one is it's a very good fit on this back. The tails only go on one way because you've actually got, there's a little recess on the bottom half that goes into this part just down here. So we're just going to go in like that and then hold on to your other side and then just wiggle it left and right, because they're going to actually interlock with each other like that as they go in, and makes for a very nice stiff, and also it keeps it at 90 degree just like that. And then your tail part comes along and it's going to sit in there just like that. And it's very simple, and it goes together very well. Now obviously you can pop around with your glue and do all those bits as well, but just for the moment we're just going to marry these two up and to see what we sort of get. Now there's quite a lot of room in this join here in the back. It's a good join, it's all okay, it's just it's not a tight fit, it's a very, very loose fit, and it sort of hangs there. So when we do it, what we'll do is we'll use a tiny little bit of super glue on the inside for when this goes in, and then obviously what we'll do is we'll use the weld around to sort of weld it up and to get it all in position. But we're not going to put it on just yet. We're going to do a few other little bits with the main wing section. So we say you could glue this area now, or you can just leave it to come apart, to perhaps making weathering a little bit easier and all the other bits and pieces. So it's totally up to you if you do it now. Our other things that we can do is obviously the bottom part here fits on to the bottom here, and it's a bit of a tight little fit. You sort of pinch the bottom half in to get this part to line up, and then the top goes on. I'm going to have to bring you out now because we're getting quite big, but as you can see, it sits on there and goes on. There's no real mass problem with any joins around here. They'll all be taken care of. Obviously we've got wing roots which we'll do, which is quite important. So we're going to get the top wings off the sprues now, cleaned up, and we can get them on and the gun parts fitted as well. Okay, so what I've done, I haven't glued this bottom wing section in yet because we need to check the top. Now a lot has been written about how this top, the wing sections goes on when it affects with these actual, the panels themselves for the top of the undercarriage, and apparently it causes problems in various bits and pieces. But I've just put it on there like this and it fits perfectly. I can't understand quite why people were having problems at all, because that is actually one of the best fits I've seen on any kit in a long time for a wing join like that from a wing root. Same with the rear other side, it goes on, they sit in there absolutely perfect. Okay, we're going to have a join down there, but it's going to be a panel line in real life anyway, so we can use that to our advantage. Now, two ways of doing this. We either pop the top of the wing on now and we just build in and then it'll lift up and straight in, or we can do it in sections. So what I'm going to elect to do is we're going to do it sort of half and half, so we won't glue the bottom half in, but we're going to glue this wing in. So what we'll do, we'll start on this leading edge here where the gun goes in, okay, and then we're just going to literally spot every little way as we go along, okay, and we're going to spot and we're going to pinch, and don't forget we can use our scissor little trick just to pull in any little areas and just hold it there just for a moment until it bites. And obviously with this being, you know, you're extra thin, it shouldn't take too long at all. So what we do, we're just going to hold that to its business, and then we're going to work our way along these leading edges, and then obviously we'll go round and we'll tidy them up and sand them back and things. Now just remember, generous amounts of glue on your leading edges. Don't be, you know, worried about it too much, because there again, when we sand down, if you make a gap, you're going to get a crack in it, and then you're going to have to fill, and you know, so forth and so on. So we don't want that to happen. So we'll just do that round there, okay, which is all going very, very well. And we'll just do this package as well, just putting a drop into the inside in the gap here. So that's done, and then what we'll do, we're just going to come along with a band and we're just going to plop them around. Now it's somewhat dry, obviously it's dry to the touch, but not dry to, you know, actually be doing too much, but it's enough to pinch it together to hold it at the back. And then we can just then run around with a bit more glue in between, like we do all the other joints, just to put it all together. And we're going to do that to both wings, but not down this wing root where it joins the fuselage, not quite yet, and we're not going to glue it to the bottom.